Hello and welcome today. Thank you for attending our Policy Committee. This is the Transport Regeneration and Climate Policy Committee. Our meeting today is, of course, open to the public, and the webcast will be available and recorded in order for people to be able to view later through the Council's website. It's also possible that Sheffield Live TV will record and rebroadcast this meeting. We've received 2 petitions and 2 questions from members of the public. The agenda and reports for today's meeting are available on the Council's website, and a small amount of paper copies are available. Can I please remind people to make sure that their mobile telephones and other such equipment are switched to silent so as not to disturb the conduct of the meeting, and I'll make sure that I do that as well. And there's no fire test planned today, but it's very loud if it does happen. If there's an emergency evacuation, please take instruction from Town Hall Council officers. And the assembly point is Tudor Square, where it is probably very wet at the moment. Please can I ask each committee member in turn to introduce themselves, because there has been a little bit of shift in some of our committee membership. And I'll just go from my left, starting with Saf, if that's okay. Hi, Saf.
Hello, Councillor Sophia Saeed, Burngrave Ward.
I'm not logged in. Ruth first, and then. Let's try again now. Yes, sorry about that. I thought I'd done it, but it didn't work. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, I'm Christine Gilligan. I'm Councillor for Hillsborough Ward, and I'm Deputy Chair of this committee.
Councillor Ruth Mercereau, City Ward, member of this committee.
Good afternoon, my name's Diane Hurst. I'm a councillor for Richmond Ward, and I'm substituting this afternoon on this committee.
Good afternoon, I'm Councillor Richard Shaw. I'm Councillor for Beecham and Greenhill Ward.
Good afternoon, I'm Andrew Sanger. I'm Councillor for Forward Ward, and I'm the group spokesperson on this committee.
Good afternoon, Councillor Ian Auckland, Councillor for Graves Park Ward.
And I'm Councillor Ben Miskell, and I'm Chair of this committee. That therefore takes us to apologies for absence. We have received apologies for absence from Denise Fox, and Diana Hurst is substituting on her behalf. And we've also had notification from Councillor Gamble Pugh that he will be running just a few minutes late, but will be joining us at some point during this meeting. Can I ask for any further apologies for absence? I don't think I can see any in the room. So that therefore takes us on to item 2, which is exclusion of the public and press. The meeting today, of course, is open to the public. However, there's an appendix in the report to item 10 on the agenda that's not available to the public or press because it contains exempt information related to financial and business affairs. If members wish to discuss the information in this appendix, we'll need to ask members of the public and press to kindly leave for that part of the meeting, and we will pause the webcast. But from having consulted with members today and in our pre-meets, I don't anticipate that that would be needed. However, if any member does wish to change their mind on that, they are more than welcome to do so. That therefore takes us to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Can I ask any member who wishes to declare an interest in any of the items of business on the agenda today? I don't see any member wishing to declare an interest. We are shooting through the agenda, and that therefore takes us to item 4, which is minutes of our previous committee meeting. Can I ask members to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of our committee that were held on the 20th of September of this year? And in your agenda pack, they're on page 11 to 27 of your agenda pack. Are we all agreed? I can see Councillor Shaw indicating to speak. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure whether it's technically a point of order or not, but should supplementary questions asked at the previous meeting not be included in the minutes of the meeting, or indeed any other questions that were asked at the meeting?
Councillor Shaw, I think you may be correct, and they should be, and my colleagues at the side are indicating that should be normal practice. If they are not present, then we apologise. Obviously, we have just changed our systems in order to make sure that members can ask questions at these committees. So in future, I'll make sure that they are part of our record of the agenda today. So apologies about that. So can I ask whether we are all agreed that the minutes of our meeting on the 20th of September are a true and accurate record of our discussions? I don't see any dissent from people, so therefore those minutes have passed as a true record. That therefore moves us on to, very speedily, item 5, which are public questions and petitions. And we've received 2 petitions and 2 public questions for today's meeting. We normally have many more, as members will know. There is a maximum of 30 minutes of this item, but I don't anticipate that we will be taking all of it. Our first petition was a petition from Christian Middleton. Unfortunately, Christian isn't here today. His petition related to calls for Sheffield City Council to install a pedestrian crossing and double yellow lines at Marcliffe Road, and we will make sure that a written copy of the answer to that is available to him. Our second petition is from Tabitha Ward, which is entitled A Safe Crossing for Students from Oasis Academy, Don Valley, on Wilford Road in Sheffield. And unfortunately, Tabitha cannot join us today. Her petition has 12 signatures, and we will make sure that committee members do have sight of that, and also that Tabitha has a full answer to her petition. That therefore takes us on to questions today. We had 2 public questions. One submitted by David Cronshaw, who unfortunately, I understand, is not available to attend our meeting today, and will make sure that he has an answer provided in written form. However, I do understand that in front of us is Mr. Morris, who was going to answer ask a similar question, and we'll look forward to providing an answer to his question. Mr. Morris.
Has everybody got the question, or should I read it out?
Mr. Morris, apologies, I'm not sure that we've had an opportunity to distribute those.
Oh, okay.
If you just read it as out, that would be brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Roy Morris, and my interest in transport is because I work with the Better Buses for South Yorkshire campaign, but I'm also interested in other aspects of transport, so therefore my question, which is, Sheffield City Council has introduced measures to improve air quality in the city centre. Is the council planning to publicise improvements in air quality? Also, is Sheffield City Council prepared to give a breakdown of charges received and of what will be done with these funds? I asked the question, I've heard, I think, I'm not sure if it's right, but that actually you're planning to do both of those things, which I think is great. But if I may, I'll take a couple of minutes to just explain why I think it's important. First of all, I think the public have a right to know, especially about 2 controversial issues like this. They basically have a right to know what's happening with money that's connected on their behalf, and whether it's being put to good use or whatever. So the second thing, I think as a campaigner, it's a campaigner in transport, it's a very depressing situation at the moment. There's nothing positive. We need positive stories to tell people. We need to tell people, I mean, buses, you know, in 2 years' time we might get something, but we don't even know whether it's going to be better you know, I mean, it's not the sort of thing to get people riveted and interested and enthused. So I think as campaigners, we need positive stories to tell. We need to be able to go out and say to people, look, the air quality is improved in the city centre. Look, the money's been taken and it's going to be used for so and so and so and so. I noticed that there was an article recently about the ULEZ, the extension of the ULEZ in London. Within a month, there was an article in a national paper saying that the amount of non-compliant traffic had halved, and that there were now only a few thousands, as opposed to millions of cars, and that the rate had improved over 2 years massively. I think we need to have things like that in Sheffield, because it helps us. It helps us feel like we're getting somewhere. We're going somewhere positive. The third reason I think why we need this is, I think for you, for the city council, you need. I'm going to be careful what I'm saying here, because I really don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm sure there are difficult decisions that you take daily, and I hope I don't tread all over those. But I'll talk from somebody from the outside. The reputation of Sheffield City Council isn't good. For my pains, I read the Star, and it is. I mean, if you don't read the Star, if you don't need to read the Star, don't, because it's very depressing. It's full of old grumps. I mean, I feel like a young man when I read that. It is very depressing. But the tale the readers of that is, Sheffield City Council doesn't know what it's doing. It's cleared off all the streets, all the buses from the centre. It doesn't. We've got rid of all the shops. All the shops gone. The Sheffield City Council's fault. There's drunks. The roads are scary. You can't go there anymore. You can't get in there. I mean, it's very negative. Even, you know, and then containers, of course. But I mean, even the containers that are being proposed in Arundel Gate, I think it is. The council's getting blamed for them. It's ridiculous. I mean, it is absurd, the things that people say. So I think you're not going to win many of those people over, because I think they're past it. But you can win over the youth. You can win over people who have a positive vision of how they want their city to be. But it does feel a bit as if you're being very cautious. Like you're scared to offend people. I mean, let's face it, net zero by 2030 isn't going to happen on its own. You're not going to get it by stealth. You're not going to get it by, we'll just slip in that and hopefully people won't moan too much and then we'll gain net zero. It's not going to happen like that. People will be put out. So if you campaign on issues like that, if you announce the information about air quality is better, about the funds are going to go towards, I don't know, extending the 52 to Wisewood, or doing an extra route around the city centre on Connect going the other way around. That's great, because that's going to get the people who believe in something better up and active and involved and on your side. So if you're going to do this, great. But please don't just, it's not a one-off. I think it's got to be something that you keep on saying to people. The air is better. So whenever there's one of these silly arguments about that Sheffield City Council is going nowhere, the air in the city centre is better. The money is being used for something positive. We need that, and it needs repeating. I mean, just think of some of the things that have been said about Brexit, about why the Labour Party, how the Labour Party left the economy. They're lies, but because people repeated them 10, 15 times over, a lot of people end up believing them. Monthly, hopefully, you can give these reports and let us know what's going on so we can feel positive, and you can feel positive, and hopefully you can start winning the city and maybe even get some higher percentage of votes in the elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. And having a light agenda, it has meant that it's really positive to be able to hear from you at length. I think you raised some really important points about us in this space needing to act in a way that builds trust, that reduces polarisation, that dispels gloom and doom about our city, because actually this is a city on the up. I'm just going to, I have prepared an answer for you. You know, Sheffield, as we know, was mandated by government to clean our air in the city. But that was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing to do because too many people's lives are blighted by the consequence of dirty air in our city, with a significant number of early deaths, hospital admissions, and such like. Clean air is, of course, a human right, and that approach to improving our air quality is what drives our position about the Clean Air Zone. As a council, we undertake air quality monitoring at a number of locations across the city. We do this in accordance with legal guidance to ensure accuracy of our results. The results of the annual air quality monitoring from the previous year are published on the council's website on a map and in annual status reports. The mapped monitoring data are available on the air quality pages of the council's website. The latest annual status reports containing 2022 data will be published on the Council's website once national government have completed their review process on the document. And unfortunately, there is therefore somewhat of a lag in data that is available. Following UK legislation requirements and processes, air quality concentrations are not assessed in real time. This has to be based on annual average concentrations using 12 months of data gathered across a full calendar year. Air quality is subject to varying, as you'll know, external factors such as weather, seasonal travel behaviour and heating use. Therefore, air pollution concentrations do vary from day to day and year on year. And that's why it's necessary to gather and assess data over a 12-month period to provide a more accurate picture over that extended period. We'll be working with government to review the performance of the Clean Air Zone and air quality levels across the full 2023 calendar year. This process will commence in spring 2024 once all data for 2023 is available, and we currently expect that it will be completed in the summer of 2024. With regards to the questions raised about income from the Clean Air Zone, which are really pertinent, to the end of September 2023, the payments received totalled £3,285,600, and the expenditure incurred in running the scheme and committed costs, such as planning to decommission the scheme, equates to £4,258,746. That means that there's currently no surplus income received. However, this may not be the case in the future, and that's why I'm clear that we need to see a clean air investment plan for Sheffield, utilising any surplus CAS income that's generated, as well as any other potential funding streams, in order to implement measures to help improve air quality in Sheffield. My view is that as a committee, we should be prioritising measures like school streets that both protect young people on the way to school and encourage active travel. As a committee, we are set to discuss plans for any surplus that may be generated during our next meeting, and we would welcome your attendance at that meeting. Thank you very much for coming along today. It's very much appreciated. That therefore takes us to item 6 of our agenda, which is an opportunity for members to ask questions. Unlike our last meeting, we've received no members' questions for this particular meeting. I was expecting one from Councillor Shaw, and I'm very disappointed that I've not got one this time. Item 7 is our work programme. And this is a document that we as a committee have been discussing for some time and meet in between meetings to formalise. And the report has been brought before you by Amanda Clayton at the side of me. However, before we start that, and Amanda takes us through any issues that might be pertinent to it, I think it's important that I do explain to members that we have had a referral from Waste and Street Scene Policy Committee. So following that recommendation from Waste and Street Scene Policy Committee for Transport Regeneration and Climate Committee to consider a public transport offer at Christmas, we've been exploring options to support people to access the great range of shops, events and markets that Sheffield City Centre has to offer over this festive time of the year. And I'm pleased to say that following very positive discussions with South Yorkshire's Mayor Oliver Coppard and the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, Travel Master and with bus operators, we're continuing to develop this offer and we'll be making an announcement about this very soon. I think in our discussions about the work plan, it is important that we're mindful of that. Amanda, are you able to highlight any particular issues with the work programme that members may need to be mindful of?
Thank you, Chair. You somewhat stole my thunder, as I was only going to highlight both the referrals, one from Council and one from Waste and Street Scene, which are on page 30 and 31, and then the amendments are listed on page 33. I have nothing more to add.
Thank you, Amanda, and apologies for stealing your thunder with that. The work programme, as we all know, will remain a live document and will be brought to each committee meeting. It is, of course, available on the Council's website for members of the public, citizens of the city, to have a look at as well. That, therefore, doesn't take us to the next item because we have to agree the work plan, I believe. Before we do that, we do have Councillor Sanger who wishes to make a contribution. Councillor Sanger.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I just want to first of all respond to the item that you introduced in terms of Waste and Street Scene, and clearly it's disappointing for some of us that a Sunday parking option was not available. But as you say, you know, there's limited time between now and Christmas. We do need to move on, and if work is being done with the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority and the bus operators, then that's clearly to be welcomed. I would just say it's important that in any offer that we are able to make in terms of buses, that we do try to make that an inclusive offer in terms of, so it's not just for those of us who are more digitally enabled than others. So that would be the only point I would raise on that. In terms of the work plan, can I welcome this work plan, because this is the first time in the 18 months we've existed where we've had a work plan which we're actually going to get to the end of in March and April and achieve. So I thank all of the officers and members who've worked very hard to get us there. I do think we therefore need to think, for any of us who are going to be here next year, we need to start in May with a belief that what we're trying to achieve every 12 months. And we've already heard from Mr. Morris a number of really, really important things. I mean, firstly, the council and the city's commitment to net zero by 2030, and if we're the lead committee, we need to be clear. We've had one set of route maps. I know we've got another set of route maps coming later this council year, and I know clearly there will be some next year. And I also notice on page 30. No, so it wasn't that. I also notice in terms of climate statements in general that other committees are looking for a lead from us in terms of the council's net zero contribution commitment. So that would be the first thing to say. The second thing to say is the transport space is clearly complicated from a governance point of view with our working arrangement with the Mayoral Combined Authority, but there are clearly some very big public transport issues coming the way of the city in the next, from now for the next 3 years. So it'd be important to know where they're coming. I think the other point would be that there's some very large transport. The challenge on this work programme has always been this mix between very small transport schemes that are important for local areas and strategic issues for the city. And so I note where we are with those, and also note that there's still a few items that we are hoping to get on for the end of this municipal year. And I think the final thing I would say is I really welcome the items we've got on today's agenda in terms of regeneration, because I think it's really important that even if schemes were agreed in principle in another place a number of years ago, that we have these update reports. So I very much welcome the two items we have today in terms of level up funding. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sanger, and I do think it's really important to note that plea to for members of this committee to add any additional items that the committee wants us to consider after this municipal year, and to try and get them into our work plan, because this is a cross-party committee and it is therefore important that we do so and we can bring forward ideas to move the city forward. I do take on board what Councillor Sanger said about the Christmas parking offer. I think it probably is important to note that that offer that was brought before Waste and Street Scene was an uncosted Christmas parking offer, and I think it is really incumbent upon all of us here to make sure that all proposals that we bring forward are fully costed. I think also it's really important to note that Councillor Sanger did make a very legitimate point about this committee having oversight of our net zero commitment, and therefore I think it is the right thing to do that we have brought forward a festive bus offer, and we're looking forward to making announcements on that in due course. So thank you very much, Councillor Sanger. We will be moving on to item 8 in a second, but do I see any member wishing to dissent from us passing the work programme? I think I see that we're all in agreement that it is okay for us to pass our work programme and continue with that, so thank you. So before we move into item 8, for each of the substantive items on our agenda today, please could I remind everyone of the process that we in this committee have followed over the past few months. The officers will be invited to present their reports to the committee. This will be then followed by questions from members to officers. Once all those questions have been asked and responses provided that will relate to the reports, we'll then move on to any discussion that may or may not be required by members before they then take a vote on it. Of course, after we've discussed that and it's taken place, then any recommendations may be moved and seconded and taken to a vote. That will enable us to conduct the business of the meeting smoothly and really efficiently, and I'd like to thank people for their cooperation in that. Item 8 is Attercliffe Levelling Up Programme Update, which is on page 45 to 53 of your agenda pack. And Alan is here to run us through the paper that he has put together. Welcome to the committee again today, Alan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an update item on the Attercliffe Levelling Up Fund project. This was last reported to the committee last November. In summary, just to bring you all back up to speed on that, that bid went into government in June 21. It was approved in October 21 and contracts with government were agreed in February 2022. The planning application for the Centre for Child Health Technology was approved in November 22 and SIMCA match funding application for the Centre for Child Health Technology was approved in February of this year. It's proposed that we will have a new Child Centre for Health Technology land transaction approved in March 2020. There was a proposed land transaction for the Centre for Child Health Technology approved in March 2023, and the Adelphi Cinema was acquired in March 2023, and in September of this year the Adelphi Cinema has been marketed. So that's a brief kind of run through of that. Summary of the Attercliffe Luff bid. There's 3 projects included in the Attercliffe Luff bid of the substantive projects, and that is the Centre for Child Health Technology. There's a broad project around connectivity and movement, and there's a project around Adelphi Square. So the rest of the report now provides an update on each of those elements. Since the last report, there's been some significant milestones achieved on the Centre for Child Health Technology. SIMCA have approved match funding for it of £6 million, and we've been working on best how to procure a development partner for that. In addition, the Children's Hospital Charity have pledged between £3 to £4 million to help deliver the project, but nevertheless development capital is still needed and borrowing or cash flow is required to make the project work. It was originally intended delivery would be via Scarborough Group. We have an existing development agreement with the City Council for Sheffield Olympic Legacy Park. However, the mix of funding for the scheme, which has been secured from public resources, has changed the original model of development. At the same time, the costs of private borrowing and the attraction of investment to fund the upfront development costs have made the original approach to this less attractive for both the Children's Hospital and Scarborough Group. So consequently, partners have been exploring options for delivery, including cash flowing of the development for the Children's Hospital and the use of LUF funds to reduce the need to borrow privately in order to avoid the need to add additional finance costs to the overall project. These changed circumstances have also changed the original land transaction and has become more of a straightforward public procurement project. The Children's Hospital Board has now decided to use a public procurement approach to bring on board and procure a partner. So, this will require a refresh report to Finance Committee to seek approval to approve a new form of land transaction for the Children's Hospital. This will add a bit of delay to the project, but it can be completed in a timely manner and detailed design can still be achieved within LUF timescales. The Children's Hospital intend to get the current design team and scheme drawings novated across to them and then tender the construction through an existing procurement framework. You will have heard in the past about the original timescales for LUF, and in previous circumstances these changes and delays would have been of concern, but I suppose that with the original timescales we needed to complete the expenditure of LUF funds by March 24. However, there have been changes by DLUC to the administration of the LUF project, which means that slippage in the programme is now less of a cause for concern. Many LUF projects across the country are in the same position, and funding for the project is now not at risk as we are in dialogue with DLUC about entering into a programme pilot for this project, for the other LUF projects, for Future High Streets Fund and for Stocksbridge Towns Fund, which means that it's likely that the end deadline will be moved to March 2026. On connectivity and movement, the main project within that is the Darnall-Atcliffe City Centre Connecting Sheffield scheme. LUF funds have been allocated to support the enhancement of this. LUF adds quality to this. It doesn't fund it, it brings up the quality of it. But there's been delays to that particular project. And due to the scale of the scheme, it's anticipated that construction will commence in the autumn of 2024, dependent on Sheffield City Council and Simcare Scheme Authority approvals. Work is underway to assess options and bring forward the completion to the design stage. The scheme budget consists of Levelling Up Fund and Transforming Cities Fund, and it's anticipated that the Levelling Up Fund will be spent initially and the scheme will be completed with the Transforming Cities Fund, again within the timescales for LUF spend. As part of the transport and connectivity, there's also a series of car park improvements planned, and these are across Atcliffe and have been identified for improvements of Baltic Road, Bodmin Street, Kimberley Street, Shortridge Road and Zion Lane. It includes resurfacing, vegetation clearance, installation of lighting and barriers and improvements to the surrounding public realm, including planting. And work on this should start this December. There is also a planned cycle hub, and the original plans were to build a new building for this, but negotiations are now progressing with Scarborough Group to acquire a lease as part of an existing property so that we can provide the hub within an existing building. There are planned aqueducts improvements, and there are 3 phases to the aqueduct repair programme. The importance of this is that the current aqueduct leaks, is unattractive, goes on a key connection route to Darnall. It's a key link for people travelling to the school and to the Olympic Legacy Park. So the work now is to try and get that leak repaired, improve the aqueduct environment, and that requires us to submit a listed building consent application for the works. CRT's contractors then require a 4-week notice period to carry out the works, but no other licence is required for work on the structure. The work is not seasonal and doesn't have the same temperature constraints as phase 2 works, where there is a need for us to be aware of weather constraints. The works planned to be carried out by PFA partners AMI, and this includes lighting design for pedestrian routes within the arches, erection of scaffolding to surveying pointing is required to obtain a more exact costing and to enable access of the removal of vegetation. It may also require a traffic regulation order. Phase 3 is the introduction of signage and heritage interpretation boards. These are still under consideration, but also require a further grant agreement with CRT. Another element of the work is about preparatory work around the Innovation Centre. So funds have been used to deal with ground conditions on a site The Innovation Centre is a development that will come forward via Scarborough, and we are working to deal with ground conditions through ground intrusive surveys there, and we require 5 days on site. And once those site surveys are complete, there's a 4-week lab interpretation period. The options and appraisals means that we'll have submission of a plan application for the remedial works, which is now anticipated to be in January 2024. Finally, on connectivity and movement, there's also works to tram stop improvements for both Attercliffe and the arena stops being delivered through South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority. A grant agreement is in place and funding has been passed to the delivery team. The works have been instructed and expected to start on site by January 2024. This will include removal of old shelters, any associated infrastructure, installation of new shelters and information boards. There's also been a request that we rename this area of the tram stop, as it's still called the arena, and it might be better to be called the arena for Olympic Legacy Park, and that's in work now. And finally on this is the works around Adelphi Square. As I alluded to earlier on, we purchased the Adelphi Cinema on the 1st of March 2023. Since then, we've been in a programme of further surveys work has been drawn up. Removal of asbestos from the building was completed in August 2023. Marketing particulars have been prepared and expressions of interest from organisations to lease and operate the building have been requested, with a number of viewings taking place over recent weeks and with interest from over 16 different organisations. The deadline for expressions of interest is 8th of December 2023, and then the next step will be to assess those expressions of interest and draw up the plans for remedial works to the building. Further work to the building, if budget allows, will allow us to do that in combination with whoever we choose to be the operator for the building. Then finally, on this report, it's worth mentioning that to support the wider regeneration of Attercliffe, along with the delivery of Levelling Up projects, a new board has been established, which is the Attercliffe Area Board. The board is chaired by the local MP, Clive Betts, and membership includes reps from local businesses, councillors, partners and groups, and supported by council officers. The group's primary focus is to be a collaborative forum that will coordinate and develop the shared vision for the Attercliffe area to allow more informed decisions by its members. The goal of the board will be to influence, promote and contribute to the development of plans and proposals for the future of the Attercliffe area. So that's the report in summary, and as such, the recommendations of the report are that he says, sorry, that you note the progress made on the Attercliffe Luff project.
Thank you very much, Alan, for presenting that so well today. I can see 2 colleagues indicating Councillor Merzrow. I think you were the first person. Councillor Merzrow, apologies for interrupting you in full swing. Can you just turn on your microphone? Thank you.
Start again. It's a comment and a question for the committee. It's about the car park and pavement improvements. There's a huge amount of illegal obstructive parking in Attercliffe, especially on and around the high street. In my view, there's not much point spending money renovating the pavements and the car park if there's not anything done to enforce this properly. So can we request from Waste and Street Scene that they increase enforcement in the area so that this money isn't wasted?
Thank you, Councillor Merzrow. I think that's something that we should be mindful of as a committee with colleagues in Waste and Street Scene. You raise a really important point. Alan, can you provide any more detailed guidance on that?
I think it's a good point. I think it's one for us to take back and to discuss with colleagues to see how we can do that. As part of what we do in terms of updates in Attercliffe, there is some increased enforcement going on around a lot of issues, and that's something I think we can talk to them about improving. I think the TRC improvements will go a long way to the transport improvements that are planned will go a long way to dealing with that on the high street. I think the car park improvements are there also for reasons to do with antisocial behaviour and the removal of that. But I take your point, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alan, for the report. So I have a couple of questions. So the first is related to the cycle hub, so 1.3.13. So, I mean, it's a shame that the original proposed facility, isn't viable. Could you assure us that the alternative facility will have kind of no reduction in spec? So I was noting from the original application that the cycle hub was supposed to have like shower facilities and accessible spaces, everything for like non-standard cycles and other things, to go with the projected 70% increase in cycling in the area. So could you reassure us on that point first, please?
I think finding a location to do the cycle hub has proved very difficult for us in terms of suitable land in the right place. Ironically, a number of potential sites that weren't originally planned for something else were explored. It proved impossible to do that. That is the bottom line. So this is a compromise and it is a reduced facility, but it is also an attempt to bring something in earlier than what will be improved facilities to do this as part of Scarborough's overall development of a Sheffield Olympic Legacy Park in the longer term. So it's not as good as it was going to be, but it is something that will happen now in advance of a bigger facility happening at some point in the future.
As an indication of how much smaller is it? Is it half the size, quarter of the size?
I think it's about quality more than size. So it's one unit within the new community stadium. It is the size that it is, but it is there mainly for bike storage. It doesn't have showers. It doesn't have other facilities, but it will be kind of lockable and usable.
Thank you. And on my second question is on the opening connecting Sheffield paragraph. When should we expect a the proposed designs to come to this committee if construction is due for autumn next year? When do we get to see what's being proposed?
I'll have to take that back and pick it up with transport colleagues who are running this element of the scheme to get back to you on a date with that one.
Thank you, and of course we will make sure that Councillor Shaw is kept updated about plans for the cycle hub, because it's something that he's clearly quite passionate about. Councillor Sanger.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. Clearly, we have no concern about changing the tram stop name to Arena for Olympic Legacy Park. This seems a very sensible suggestion. Just in the wider point in terms of the time scale, because clearly we were all concerned by the March 24 time scale, and now we've got this March 26 time scale, which clearly suits us in terms of the fact that we're needing to change to change the way we're funding it and going out in terms of various contracts. But I'm just concerned that from a Sheffield perspective, this was a really important scheme, and we're very pleased that Attercliffe, an area that had long needed this sort of scheme, that finally won a competitive scheme. I'm just concerned that DLUC might just say, well, levelling up fund is not what we wanted, and we've extended it 2 years, but we're actually just running the scheme down, and that this is no longer a flagship government scheme. So can I have some assurance that we will have a programme timetable to achieve this, and that we're very aware of the original timescale, and that it may be useful for us for this extension, but from a Sheffield regeneration point of view, this is a key, and this is a key project that we want to deliver on time. Thanks, Chair. I think the discussions with government are very helpful. I think the plan is to spend Luff first in as many circumstances we can on all of the elements of the project, on the transport and on the CCHT. We have plans in place to enable the Luff spending to happen first, so that that's secured and safe within the timescale required.
Sean, I think, is indicating he'd like to speak. Sean.
Thanks, Chair. Just to pick up on that point, really, Councillor Sanger, is that the revised timescale is obviously helpful. It gives us more time. It means that the funding is no longer at risk. And one of the benefits of having the Attercliffe Area Board now is that there's greater scrutiny around what we're doing out there as well, but there's absolutely no intention that we won't deliver these schemes within the revised timescales, and we won't be looking to hand any money back to government. So all of the plans that we've talked about will bring regular updates, but we're confident that they will all be now delivered within the revised timescales that we've got.
Thank you. I don't see any other member who wishes to ask a question. That therefore would normally take us into members having an opportunity to debate the report. Do I see any appetite for members to make any contributions? I don't. Alan, thank you very much for your report. I think it's also probably, if I could just pick up a few points in that discussion part, that I think it's probably really, really positive that given the financial pressures and rising costs that we have seen in infrastructure projects as a result of Liz Truss crashing the economy, is really positive, isn't it, to see that actually funding for the project isn't at risk and that deadline has changed to March 26. And I think that is really important for this committee to note, and members of the committee have made that point today. I'm also really pleased to see that we've got plans in place to change the name of the stop to reflect the fact that the area is anchored by the Olympic Legacy Park. And I'd also like to put on record our thanks to Clive Betts, the local MP, for taking on the role of chairing that Attercliffe Area Board, which provides really important oversight of this project as well. So thank you. That therefore takes us on to making a decision about this particular item. In your agenda pack, the recommendations are on page 45, and we are asked to note the progress made on the Attercliffe Lough project. Do I see any member who wishes, are we all agreed, do I see any member who wishes to dissent? Please raise your hand if you do. I don't see that, so therefore this item has passed and carried. Thank you very much, Alan, for presenting that report. I think, however, you are still up because item 9 is another regeneration item, which is a progress update on Gateway to Sheffield Levelling Up Fund programme. For members as well as citizens of the city who might be following at home on our live stream, that's on page 55 to 62 of the agenda pack. And Alan, I think you're going to run us through this one again today.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't running away, so I haven't got the agenda pack with me, that's all. So, it's fine. Yes, so this is an update on the Gateway to Sheffield Levelling Up Fund project. Again, this was last reported to TRC committee in November 22. I won't go through those big deadlines from last time round, but I will say that because they're basically the same as the Attercliffe Lough project in terms of where we got to. The Gateway to Sheffield Lough bid is basically around 3 projects. This is the Castle site, S1 Art Space and Harmony Works, with the Castle site being the centrepiece of the work, including the River Sheaf, the Castle, deculverting the River Sheaf, and the creation of new green public space. Progress so far on the Gateway to Sheffield bid, if we take the Castle site first, in May 23, a full planning application for the development of the Castle site was approved and work has commenced on procuring a contractor to undertake the works. Procurement has been undertaken using a 2-stage process, with the first stage covering preliminary works and the preparation of the site, and stage 2 of the procurement process to firm up the actual costs through detailed design, which may result in some variability up and down in tender price. Although in 2 stages, both stages have been procured at once, and there must be sufficient certainty that both stage 1 and stage 2 are affordable within the envelope of available funds. I will point out that since we've drafted this report and brought it to the committee, that the contractor has now been appointed, and I think that was announced last week. What is clear is that full design of the Castle site does require some additional funds beyond those available through Levelling Up Fund programme in order to deliver our ambitions for the site. Without additional funds, hard choices will need to be made on which elements of the design should be delayed to a future date. The procurement process has taken longer than expected, as respondents needed more time to provide a response to the tender documents. Even with an extended time to respond, we only have one realistic bid received, and this isn't particularly unusual in the current construction climate. The upshot of that is that we are making an application to South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority to use gain share funding to bridge the gap and ensure that the scheme in full can be delivered. It's anticipated that sufficient gain share funding can be secured to provide the certainty of a suitable size funding envelope to progress the appointment of a contractor, which we've now done, and that there is sufficient budget approved so we can get phase 1 of the works underway. When full costs for stage 2 are confirmed, an increase in budget will be brought forward through Finance Committee for approval. Strategic business case has been submitted to SIMCA for this and other projects to seek gain share funding and is going through the SIMCA approval process. This will provide the certainty required for the appointment of the selected contractor. Again, this report is playing a little bit of catch up between draft and where we are, because that has now all happened. And further detail of the ask for gain share will then be developed through the preparation of an outline and full business case, informed by discussions with the contractor and the final design of the works. Again, whilst it was originally anticipated that the selection of the contractor would be completed early this year, that's been resulted in a slight delay, and it means that the programme will now not start on site until January 2024. Whilst that's disappointing, the previous discussion around the discussions we've had with DLUC to change to the LUF programme and the programme pilot means that that's less of a concern to us now with the extended deadline for works. On S1 Art Space, since the last report to TRC, S1 Art Space has left its premises at Park Hill and is now based in Sheffield Hallam University's White Building on Fitzallen Square. The proposed project at Park Hill has proven to be undeliverable due to a number of factors: increased costs of site acquisition, changes in the funding landscape, cost price inflation. However, the ambition and demand for a gallery, artist studios and associated facilities for S1 has not diminished, and the benefits of the project coming to fruition are still considerable for the city and for art sector. S1 team have been exploring options for a new location for the gallery and studios, and they now have a preferred option that has floor space to deliver the LUF outputs, and they are looking to purchase the building. The building is currently on the market, and they would like to make an offer so they can press for the delivery of the scheme. It is therefore proposed that the grant agreement is progressed to allow S1 to draw down funds to purchase the building. The key criteria haven't changed for the project: delivering the LUF outputs, provide cost savings, be accessible, and contribute towards the regeneration and cultural offer of Sheffield. In addition, Sheffield Hallam and S1 are currently pursuing a new partnership in this phase of development and delivery, and the project retains the original vision and aims to deliver the required outputs for the LUF programme. And S1 and Hallam have now signed an MOU regarding this partnership. On Part Harmony Works, the team are making good progress with work under the £250,000 Heritage Lottery Fund development grant. Further detailed structural surveys have taken place. Mainly on the structure of Cannon House to firm up allowances within the cost plan. I understand that that's gone well. There aren't any major issues resulting from that work. That cost plan has now been agreed, and the risk register will be submitted to the National Heritage Lottery Fund as part of the delivery stage application. Fundraising is continuing. The National Heritage Lottery Fund ask is around 4 million, and an extra bid to the art account is expected to be made in 2024 when the next round of applications open. Consultation of proposals took place on the Cascade Festival in September, and further consultation with the Cascade Partnership is taking place in December. Such the progress is sufficient to provide assurance that on confirmation of the match funding being secured, the LUF funding for this project can be released. It's a relatively minor part of the whole, but we think there's good progress to be made and we'll be able to spend our elements of money at the right time. Again, finally on this project, there are changes to the government's arrangements, along with delivery of wider regeneration in Castlegate. There's been a new board established, the Cascade Area Board. This board is chaired by the local MP Paul Blomfield, and membership includes representatives from local businesses, councillors, partners and groups, and is supported by council officers. The board does not replace the Cascade Partnership, and its membership includes representatives from the partnership to ensure a collaborative and coordinated approach. And that is it from me, and apart from the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan, for taking us through that report. Do I see any member who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Auckland.
Yes, thank you for the report, Alan. It is about the governance changes and the formation of the area board, and I just like to know that whether the changes in the governance arrangement are being welcomed by all partners, and particularly that we're maintaining two groups. Is that generally being accepted as a way forward?
The governance arrangements are strengthening, not changing, and if involvement continues. It's been discussed with the Castlegate Partnership. There are representatives of the Castlegate Partnership on the group. I think we've had one meeting of the board so far. Members of the partnership were there. I think we are moving forward in a period of cooperation.
It's a slightly different arrangement to the Attercliffe. I mean, I think the establishment of a Castlegate area board was modelled on the previous arrangements in Attercliffe, chaired by the local MP. Am I right to think that was seen as a positive development?
The models are very similar. The interested parties are different because they're two different places in the city, and the interests are different.
So it's a happy arrangement, would you describe it as now?
It's not unhappy, no.
I suppose that's the best you might hope for them, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Auckland. I guess we're looking for a collaborative and professional approach to those governance arrangements, and hopefully we have that. Councillor Sanger.
Yeah, clearly, when we were here last year, we had an unhappy governance arrangement. We had a board with councillors on which hadn't met for 5 years, where several senior officers didn't know it existed despite the group whips appointing people to it the previous May. So I'm delighted to hear that the new arrangements are not unhappy. So I think that is progress. I mean, can you just explain a bit more about the new governance arrangements, and a little bit more about who sits on which, who sits on the governance board and who sits on the partnership, but just so that we as members can understand, because clearly last year nobody understood the arrangements. So it sounds as if lots of good work has been carried out over the past 12 months.
Can I think Sean would like to come back on that.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Sanger. So what we've tried to do, so the existing Castlegate Partnership has been in existence for some time, and I think it has about 65 different stakeholder groups represented as part of that. One of the things that we've put in place over the last year, and it sort of mirrors the approach that the Stocksbridge Towns Fund have, is to set up a more collaborative approach, chaired by the MP that was responsible for the Levelling Up Fund bid in the first place, and to try and encourage greater collaboration at that level. So the Attercliffe board was set up about a month before the Castlegate one. The principles around both of the boards are very similar. The Attercliffe one consists of Clive Betts as the MP. It has a deputy chair of Martin McCurvey, who also links into the Castlegate partnership work, and to make sure that there's a link between the two areas. There's representatives of Sheffield Hallam on that board, Olympic Legacy Park, chair of the LAC is on that board, and there is a representative from the Attercliffe business community. So that's the makeup of the Attercliffe board. We mirrored a similar approach for Castlegate. So on that board is Paul Blomfield as the chair, Councillor Miskell is the deputy chair on that board. Councillor Johnson is a local representative from the local area on that board. I'm trying to think who else we've got on there. We also have Martin McCurvey, who is the chair of the Castlegate Partnership, and then we offered out a discussion with how the Castlegate Partnership wanted to represent itself on that board, and there are currently 6 representatives of the Castlegate Partnership that the Castlegate Partnership proposed and put forward to represent not their own interests, but to represent all of the Castlegate Partnership on that board. So we've had the first meeting, I think it did go well. I know it's something that some members of the Castlegate Partnership have been asking for a while. And like I say, we've had the first meeting. Both meetings are running on a 6-weekly cycle. And just to be clear, whilst it's strength and governance, they don't have any formal decision-making process within that governance. It is more about oversight of what we do and driving that area-based approach to regeneration. So it's a model that we've looking to roll out, and as we do regeneration programs and projects in other areas, will be a similar approach that we adopt to have a more collaborative and open way of sort of driving forward area-based regeneration. So hopefully that gives you a bit more of an understanding of the process and the principle of how we've set those up.
Thank you for that, and I clearly welcome a collaborative approach. I welcome the oversight that the new governance arrangements will have. Just two other questions. Firstly, just go back to the procurement process and the fact that there was only one realistic bid. I mean, that is somewhat disappointing in such a key scheme for this city. And the layperson's advice is always, if there's only one bid, then it's time to reconsider and go back out to market. So can you give me some reassurance about why there were so few realistic bids for this scheme?
Sean, are you able to come back on that?
Yes, can Chair. It's not uncommon in the current market. We've had a number of schemes where we have had low interest. It's no reflection on the scheme. They were delivered through the Your Civils framework that we manage. So we manage that framework as well. So the contractors that are already on that framework are pre-selected. So it's not as though we were going out blind to the open market. So there was 5 or 6 contractors engaged through the process, but ultimately we only had one bid submitted. I think because it was a framework that they're already pre-selected to, they've already, in essence, gone through the first part to get on that framework. And that's why it took a bit longer to conclude the discussions with them. So they are a known quantity in terms of a contractor that we've worked with. Keltbray have just delivered the Upper Don flood schemes that successfully handed over. So I think we've got confidence both as managing the frameworks and based on the known company that was coming forward to enter into the 2-stage discussions with them.
Okay, thank you for that. And as a final question, then I would want to come back in terms of comments. Right at the beginning, I mean, this is a really important site for Sheffield. I mean, this is where Sheffield comes from, and part of it has always been about deculverting that part of the River Sheaf. And in all the technical discussions and all the progress, it's mentioned right at the beginning of the report in terms of 1.2.3, but then we've not talked about progress in terms of deculverting the Sheaf, because I think most of us would want to see that as the early win part of this project, because we accept there's some other quite complicated construction parts of the project, but opening up the Sheaf is an early win for the people of Sheffield on this scheme. So I just wondered where we are in terms of timescale of that.
So the commitment, members of the committee may recall that when this scheme went through planning, due to the budget constraints at the time, planning permission was only secured for a partial deculverting. Based on the costings we've got now and subject to further work with the contractor, the additional gain share funding we are seeking, we are hopeful we'll see the full deculverting of the Sheaf. Some of that will work through the contractor's programme. It's quite a complex engineering solution to deculvert it. So where that will feature within the overall programme, we can come back and update you on once we work that through. But we're certainly looking at work now starting on site in early 2024 and we'll probably finish by March, April time in 2025. Like I said, the budget is still, the final cost with the contractor is still to be agreed, but the aspiration has always been to see the full deculverting of the Sheaf, and that's what we're still aiming to bring forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sanger and Sean, for your answers. The next person on my list is Councillor Hurst.
Thank you, Chair. My question has turned to a comment because of the responses to Councillor Auckland and Sanger, if that's okay. Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Sean, for your report. I'm very happy to hear, because I recollect some very good, difficult meetings over the past 12 to 18 months where the Castlegate Partnership and the community felt that their views and their needs and their requirements for the opening up and the inclusion of this area weren't being considered. I'm very happy to note that you've taken this on board and that you've taken a more strategic overview where the business interests and the community interests in the area are able to sit as full partners and work collaboratively. I would be very interested in knowing how that arrangement progresses going forwards, because it seems like a very positive way to go forwards. And I welcome that we've managed to secure this scheme and progress it, albeit with only one contractor, because as we walked, I remember a very, very, very cold morning when we walked about the area, and how passionate officers were to actually open up and create a nod to the heritage of Sheffield in the area. So thank you very much for your work in that and for overcoming the obstacles in between times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurston, and those comments will be welcome and noted. Councillor Said.
Yes, I think my point has been addressed by Councillor Sanger. Thank you so much for your report. I just wanted some clarification at 1.419 point, which is the fundraising continues. And it says here additional bid for the Art Council is expected to be made. If this does not get through, what happens? And number two, it's is it the 4 million that is you're gonna apply for the 4 million? And it just says here when the next time the application form opens. So when you make the application form, is there a guarantee? If not, what happens next? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Said. I think your point was in relation to S1 Art Space specifically. Alan, are you able to help us with that?
I think that paragraph actually relates to Harmony Works, and in that circumstance, it's Harmony Works who are applying for the funding, not the council, and they are the National Heritage Lottery Fund is a process that they're going through. They're looking to progress that first. There's a balance of funding that they're seeking. I think they equally might look to other funders if the Art Council funding isn't positive, but there's no indication that it wouldn't be. From our point of view with the LUF, we're talking to them about a phased approach to enable them to do what they can with the National Heritage Lottery Fund money if the other funding doesn't come into place. So from our point of view, we will be able to start the project, so that's the important bit.
Thank you very much, and apologies for the confusion there. Of course, it was Harmony Works. Do I see any other colleague who wishes to either ask a question or to debate the item? Councillor Sanger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, welcome the progress. I mean, clearly this is a very important site. I mean, ever since the Castle Market closed, the regeneration of this site has been top of people's minds, and so it's always it's welcome to see the progress but understand the challenges. I've said a lot about opening up the Sheaf. It's really important. I mean, where does Sheffield get its name from? It's the clearing by the Sheaf here, so it's the confluence of the Sheaf and the Don. The site, so that was the site before the late Norman Castle was built. So opening up the Sheaf and exposing the remains of the castle is really important, but also the public realm works and all the other works that are part of the scheme. Pleased that we've got a grip of the governance arrangements, because clearly this time last year there was a number of misunderstandings, and we had both the community unhappy, some key stakeholders not happy, and also councillors. Councillors across party not clear what the governance arrangements were. So I think we've got a much more collaborative approach. Clearly there has been challenges in the construction industry and challenges in terms of the various funding streams, and we're going to have to go out and find the extra funds for our vision. But I think it's really important that we keep to the visions that have been shared with the public. I mean, I think we now have a number of schemes which will have widespread acceptance for Sheffield people, and I think we now need to find ways of funding them and find ways of delivering them. So I really welcome the progress, but I think it's also important that we do get regular updates at this committee, because clearly a lot has changed in the past 12 months, and some of that, as I say, some of the internal partnership working, are changes for the better, and some of the financials are more challenging, and that's often the way. And clearly, on any project, we have to balance both. But I think that there has been significant progress, but we mustn't lose sight of the ambition that we have for this site, and it's a real chance to, as a new focal point for Sheffield. So welcome the report, but accept we've got some real financial challenges with this to deliver the vision that has been shared with the public, and that the public of Sheffield want to see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sanger. Councillor Auckland.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, if success is within grasp in the next few years, I think that is quite some achievement. I go back, sadly, to the Development Corporation and some involvement in Attercliffe on the previous report, further back than I care to think about, really, and ditto on opening up the sheaf. So I'd just like to say, to see that we've got tangible success within grasp is quite some achievement, and congratulations to everybody who's pushed it forward. And I think amongst the projects that we've got and the aspirations we've got, I'd echo Councillor Sanger's remarks that I think both the revival of Attercliffe and the Castlegate project particularly would say something about the council achieving some things that would likely get a lot of popular support, and we can't always say that with some of the things that we try and do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Auckland. Do I see any other members wishing to make a contribution? I don't. Thank you very much, Alan, for presenting the report today. I think this is a really important item, isn't it? It's the site, as members have said today, the birthplace of Sheffield. I think it's quite clear that we've heard from a number of members on a cross-party basis that actually we would like to continue to receive updates on the important work that's happening in Castlegate, and hopefully we will do in this committee, but also as part of our regular knowledge briefings that take place in between these meetings, so that we are all up to date about what's happening as members as well. Just like we did with the previous item, I think it's really important that we do note and thank the chair of the Castlegate Area Board, Paul Blomfield, for stepping up and assisting us in the governance arrangements of this. I think it's really, really welcome, and that collaborative approach that brings people with us and is also professional is really, really important, and I think that's been welcomed by members today, hasn't it? So that therefore takes us on to the recommendations of this particular item, which are contained on page 55 of your report pack, and it's that the report provides a progress update, which of course we've had, on round 1 levelling up fund bid for the Gateway to Sheffield project. Are we all agreed? If any member wishes to dissent, please raise your hand. So it looks like we are all in agreement, which is wonderful. So thank you very much, Alan, for presenting that report, and also Sean for your contribution today as well. That therefore takes us to item number 9. Oh, sorry, apologies. Item number 10, which is the 2024 to 2027 revenue and capital budget. You will find that on pages 63 to 78 of your agenda packs, and I believe that Will Stewart is going to run us through those. Will.
Thank you very much, Chair. Will Stewart, I'm Director of Investment, Climate Change and Planning at the Council. I'm just going to run through just a few key highlights on the financial report, and then obviously very, very happy to take questions on it. So as members will be aware, the Council's in the middle of its medium-term financial assessment at the moment, working with committees to work through budget savings proposals for next year. And this is the report looking at the work we've been doing as a committee to address some of those pressures. So I think firstly, just stating the overall position, the Council's position is that it needs to find approximately £60 million of savings over a 4-year period, £18 million this year, and £1 million within, just under £1 million in this committee. So that's the challenge that we've been set as a committee. So I've been working with members and other officers to work through various budget proposals over the last few months, and we've drawn those together in this report, hopefully to agree a way forward today. I think the next thing to say is that there have been a variety of ways that we've sought to mitigate the pressure of just under £1 million. They are the pay award being covered corporately this year, so thanks to colleagues sitting over there, Philip and Natalia. There are various other ways that we're seeking to mitigate pressure, so using basically some corporate treasury funds which have been allocated to each committee as a bit of a contribution towards our budget savings. We've looked at fee increases across a number of areas. They can be found at Appendix 1. And also what we've done this year is use some one-off surplus income from various transport schemes that we have in the city to close the gap in pressures and to address the pressure that is brought about on this committee by the levy that we pay away to the MCA. That's a £500,000 levy that we pay year on year, each year, on top of, that's an increase on top of what we pay away to the MCA for various transport projects. And the use of that surplus income that we get from transport schemes is set down within national policy guidelines, and indeed it's set down within this council's own specific policy guidelines. And I can circulate those guidelines for members if they would find that useful. Because we've managed to mitigate the pressures this year, which is really, really positive, this has meant that members have not had to consider reductions in service provision. That's really, really positive. But of course, this is an ongoing challenge for this committee and for this council. So it's likely that we're going to have to get back into some of those discussions next year. But for this year, we've not had to consider proposals around service reductions, which is very positive. And of course, we'll continue to review opportunities to drive investment and income for the benefit of services and projects overseen by this committee as we move through this year and into next year. That will be a continuing task. So finally then, just members are asked to note the key considerations in the report, but importantly, just Chair, under the recommendations, they're asked to approve increases in fees and levies at recommendation 4 in line with inflation and our cost recovery principles. So the first 3 items are to note because the decisions around budgets will be taken at strategy and resources. We're asking members to note in these committees, but ultimately all savings proposals will be grouped together in a final report that will be going through S&R. But that final recommendation around increasing levies and proceeding cost-saving measures in line with our cost recovery principles, we're asking members to agree that today. And those levy increases in levies and fees can be found at Appendix 1. They're things like skip fees and building control fees. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Will. And just drawing your attention to something that I did say earlier on in the meeting, we do know, don't we, that the appendix to this report, item 10 on the agenda that we're discussing at the moment, isn't available to the public or press because it contains exempt information relating to financial affairs. And of course, if members today wish to discuss that information in the appendix, will need to ask that members of the public and press kindly leave for that part of the meeting and we pause the webcast. However, I don't think from talking to members beforehand that we anticipate having to do that or an appetite to do that. Do I see any members wishing to ask a question about this particular item? I don't. Any member who wishes to discuss this particular item any further? There will, of course, be further opportunities in due course to do this. And thank you very much, Will and the finance team for putting this together. It's really, really very appreciated. So that therefore takes us to the recommendations of item 10, which are contained on page 63. And of course, the report sets out those budget pressures and savings proposals. The responsibility of this committee, it provides recommendations to savings, which are going to support Sheffield City Council in setting a balanced budget in 2024-25, and these recommendations have been subject to the consultation of all political parties. So can I see any indication from members present if they wish to dissent from us passing this item and noting those savings? No, I don't. Therefore, the report has been passed. So thank you very much, and thank you, Will, for bringing that forward today. That therefore takes us to the close of our business, which is in record time today of 1 hour and 22 minutes. I'm very, very impressed. So thank you very much, and I hope you all have a great day.